Hello chess friends and welcome to your of Chess channel and welcome to a new study about the amazing Catalan defense. Today with a different sideline. Today we'll analyze this approach by White, but from Black's perspective. Today we'll analyze this approach when White is going into the Catalan with the sideline with the move knight to c3. This is sometimes unpleasant to handle because White is many times preparing this aggressive method in the center of the board to push the pawn on e4, and it's tough to handle it because sometimes we don't want to go into the open Catalan ideas with d takes c4. So in my opinion this line has to be studied. In my opinion this is really important line for you to know if you're facing the Catalan with the black pieces. And the instructive game that I prepared for you today is really a spectacular one. We have here the top attacker Daniil Dubov against the strongest player in the world, Magnus Carlsen. The game was played in the Rapid tournament in 2020. You see now really I think a cool approach by Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces against this setup by Daniil Dubov. But of course we're starting from beginning. Let's see now how to reach this position and how we should counterplay these ideas with the black pieces. So if you're interested more into the Catalan opening, different ideas, different sidelines, different variations, please check out our studies so far. So here's the link of our playlist. I think you can have really a great preparation in the Catalan opening. So let's start now with the game with the white pieces. Daniil Dubov opened with d4. Magnus' response was knight to f6, knight to f3, d5, and first of all the game transposed into the Queen's Gambit. We have the Queen's Gambit decline the Slav defense, 3 knights variation, and Magnus builds this powerful semi-Slav structure, which is of course in some lines very tough to handle, because what I don't think Black will face is this idea c takes d5. If that happens after e takes d5, your bishop gets out, and I think Black has gained equality. So here after move e6, Daniil Dubov goes now into the most aggressive variation, into the most aggressive sideline of this position, goes into the Catalan setup with g3 and bishop to g2. What should we do here? First of all, what Magnus did, I really liked, played the normal setup, knight from b to d7, normal development, and as I said, there's no way, I think, in these types of positions that White will take. If that happens, then we simply recapture with the pawn. We have a solid structure, I think. We have here this b7, c6, d5 structure, and in the next couple of moves, we're going to play, I don't know, kingside castling, bishop to d6, rook to e8, and I think you have a great control of the e4 square, so nothing gained, I think, here for White wants to get more out of the Catalan opening. So that's why here after move knight from b to d7, we have bishop to g2 by Daniil Dubov, bishop to e7 by Magnus, castling, and castling also here by Black. Now comes, I think, the next moment that's very crucial for us to know here. There are basically two good concepts: queen to c2 or b3. Queen to c2 is an immediate preparation here to, as I said, play the move e4. e4 is now really the main goal of White, and in order to not allow that, I think now we have to play d takes c4. Although it's a move that we basically, if you're not really prepared in the Catalan opening, we're trying to avoid it because it leads into really complications. It reaches really fully dynamic position all over the board. Now, of course, White will continue with a4. We can play a5, block some ideas here on the queen side, and now after move e4, there is this liberating line, I think, that helps you out, which is not, I think, giving here White such a great attack. After something like d takes e5, now we can attack the pawn twice. If, for instance, bishop to g5 happen, bishop to f4 happens, then we have g5 to kick away the bishop, and then we can recapture the pawn. Probably in this position, White will continue with e6, then we take, and then after something like queen to e2, hitting this pawn, we have always this resource. We can always protect the pawn, take stakes. Maybe now bishop to e3, but now we can cement the position, and now after something like e5, okay, White will eventually get this pawn, but now with knight to c5, I think we have solved all of the positional problems. We will play bishop to e6, queen to c7, rook to d8, and I think this is perfect position here also for Black. I see one game in the database, the game ended in a draw. So as I said, this queen to c2 has to be met, I think, here immediately with d takes c4. You have to now very commit here in the center of the board. But here Daniil Dubov plays the move b3. He wants first of all to keep his healthy structure here around the square c4. Then he wants to play maybe something like queen to c2, and his main progressive idea e4. Magnus continues now with a very important move b6, which is creating a liberating square for the bishop, attacking further the c4 pawn. Now we have rook to e1 by Daniil Dubov, and now bishop to a6. If e4 happens now immediately, then there is this defensive resource. Bishop to b4 solves, I think, again, the positional problems of black, because white played the move b3, but then of course the knight on c3 is a little bit loose. You can maybe play queen to c2. Now we take, and now we can capture the pawn. Okay, I will not say this is completely winning or something for black. You have gained the pawn. White has here two powerful bishops on the board, will eventually play bishop to a3, has the control on dark squares, but we have an extra pawn. So from this point on, it's really, really tough battle, but I think you can be satisfied also with this outcome of this particular position. So that's why for bishop to a6, Daniil Dubov plays now knight to d2. He's preparing still this e4 goal. Magnus is not losing any time here. He plays rook to c8. We have now bishop to b2, and now Magnus is saying, I had it enough. I don't want to tolerate your e4 move. I will eventually now battle for the center. Now c5 is coming in a good way, and from this point on, I think again black has gained at least equality. So we have d takes c5, Magnus takes. Again, two approaches I think are very important to notice here. You can play here from white's perspective the move c takes d5. Now we take e takes d5, and after something like knight to f3, we have a great control of the e4 square. After knight to e4, we can take here with the pawn. We can, I think, even slightly better is to take out with the knight. Although in this line you're left a little bit with an isolated pawn, but you have a great activity. Rook on the c file, bishop very dangerous, knight on a centralized square, bishop will eventually come on f6, so I think this is a perfect position. After something like e3, we can play queen to d7, connecting now both of the rooks, and I think nothing gained also here from white's perspective. This should be a pretty equal game. So after move knight to c5, here Daniil Dubov, of course, a sharper play, is trying to spice up the game further, plays now the aggressive b4. Magnus plays, of course, knight to e4. We have knight takes e4, and now after d takes e4 that Magnus played here, the problem for white is here that you cannot actually take the pawn on e4, because after knight to e4, bishop to e4, we will not pick up the pawn on c4. We will eventually pick up the pawn on b4. The rook is hanging, and now also the pawn is hanging. So this line is not working. I think white will eventually lose the pawn, and black has solved again all of the positional problems in the game. So that's why after move d takes e4, Daniil Dubov played b5, but it gives, of course, here Magnus extra time to connect now the bishop to the powerful pawn on e4. We have e3, bishop to b4. Magnus uses now new attacking ideas, so attacking the knight on d2, rook to e2, has to be played now by Daniil Dubov. A little bit misplaced, I would say, this rook. You see the issues about this rook to e2 move. There's simply no good connection anymore on the first rank here by white. Magnus uses now this also moment, plays now a powerful queen to d3, is of course preparing the move rook from f or rook from c to d8, is trying of course to put more pressure against the knight on d2. So what should white do? For instance, bishop to f6 seems maybe sort of, I don't know, aggressive, but it's not so good here to give up the bishop for knight, although you're messing up the pawn structure. The problem here is that you cannot capture the pawn on e4. We'll simply play bishop to e4, and the bishop is connected now to the queen on d3. You could maybe here, instead of this move knight to e4, play rook to b1, but now you play simply bishop to c3. If, for instance, queen to b1 happens, now we can take. If rook to d1, then we pick up this pawn, and now with bishop to d5, we lock simply the d file. It's, I think, also perfectly fine position. We can, after queen to c4, play rook to c4, so there's no way that white will get this heavy artillery on the 7th rank, so good position here also for black. After move queen to d3, Daniil Dubov played rook to b1. We have bishop to c3 by Magnus Carlsen, wants of course to put more pressure still against the knight on d2, and now Daniil Dubov doesn't react correctly. He plays now bishop to a3. Huge blunder. here by Daniil Dubov. Better choice is simply to play bishop to c3, then after queen to c3, rook to c1. White can of course attack the queen. We play simply queen to d3, now maybe bishop to f1, and now we get the knight on d7. After a couple more moves, it's very important now to play the move knight to e5 instead of knight to c5. If knight to c5 happens, then of course knight to c5, rook to c5 leads into a messed up position, because again the rook will come on the 7th rank, so it's not such a powerful position. Then of course we have to play knight to e5, putting more pressure against this pawn, and I think black should be again very solid here. So that's why bishop to a3 must move here for bishop takes c3, pardon me, here must move for Daniil Dubov, but Daniil tried an aggressive move. Bishop to a3 hits now the rook, and Magnus plays of course rook from f to d8, gets out of this mess, and has now a very powerful attack against the knight on d2. Daniil Dubov is trying now to solve this position in a tactical way, because you cannot take, of course, bishop takes d2, your queen is hanging, but Magnus plays now queen takes c4. That's the issue about this move in the first place, rook to e2. The rook, as I said, there are certain back rank problems. The rook is not connected to the queen. We have now queen to e1 by Daniil Dubov, but even if you play here bishop to f1, then we can play simply here queen to c7, getting out of this mess, takes, and now with knight to g4, I think this is a perfect position for black. Knight to e5 is going to happen, and maybe we have knight to f3 or knight to d3 using both of these powerful squares. The rooks and the queen are on the open files, so again a perfect setup here for black. The rook is also lined up against the queen, so messed up position again here for white. After queen to c4, Daniil Dubov tried queen to e1. Magnus continues with the pressure against the knight on d2. Daniil Dubov is trying now bishop to b4 to force a further trades of pieces, but now comes a beautiful move here by Magnus Carlsen. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now here the best move for black. I would even dare to say black moves and wins the game. So what would you do now in this particular position? Okay, here Magnus played a beautiful and stunning queen sacrifice. Queen takes b3. After a takes b3, now Magnus could take here another piece, and we have now really too much pressure. Magnus has now a minor piece and the rook against the queen, but we have to say it's also much better activity. Still there is this pin, still there is this tension. The Stockfish engine evaluates this position as 3.5 in black's favor, so it's really completely winning here for black. In the game, bishop to f1 was played by Daniil Dubov. Magnus plays again a powerful move, a5, b takes a6 en passant. It's not working because here then you're inviting black's bishop into the game, so it's not working. So after move a5, Daniil Dubov tried queen to d1, and now Magnus played h6, and in this particular position Daniil Dubov resigned. So there's, as I said, simply too much pressure here. The pieces are playing in such a beautiful harmony of blacks here, so nothing can be done. Fair resign here by Daniil Dubov. So great game. The instructive idea here, as I said, is to compete against this e4 goal. Let's start from the beginning. So in the beginning, this whole idea with knight to c3 is to push the pawn on e4. You can, of course, play d takes c4 also here immediately. I'm not saying this is wrong or something, but this, I think, leads into complications immediately. This is a line that I think a beautiful attacker in the Catalan would love to play. Magnus Carlsen loves when you take, when he's playing the Catalan with the white piece, he simply loves when you take it here on c4. Then white has really great attacking chances. So I like really this really firm, solid setup in the beginning. Knight from b to d7, bishop to e7. So nothing. Now we're playing b6, going for the c4 pawn. As we said, if white rushes with the move e4, then there is always this resource with bishop to b4, because after move b3 the knight is a little bit loose. So as I said, study, maybe this line is working for you. I'm not saying this is the optimal way. There are many ways that are more suitable for you, but I like this approach. I like this setup. Basically, many times I'm using some ideas of Magnus Carlsen. I'm stealing his ideas, so nothing wrong, of course, when you study Magnus Carlsen's game, because many times, like in this one, he plays simply perfect chess. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more about the Catalan, please check out our studies. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.